So let me just check in real quick before we start with the questions. Okay, so let's just breathe into that heart space. And as we breathe, it's like breathing into the heart space again, as if there's nowhere else that energy can go. It goes directly into the heart space, and it, as you exhale, it exhales out 360 degrees around you. Let's create a little field of love, a little field of self-compassion, self-love, and let's radiate that energy out everywhere where it might want to go. So inhaling deep into the heart space and exhaling out 360 degrees. And inhaling in exactly what you need today. Yeah, a little more compassion, a little more love, a little more self-confidence. Yeah, whatever that is, be easy on yourself as you breathe in and then exhale that capacity out to everybody else who might need it today too. Yep. All right. So, Sharon, are you ready for some questions?
Yes, first question is, it is suggested that 1 in 3 people will be diagnosed with autism by 2035. What are the implications of that for society, the school system, and families?
It depends on how fast we evolve. It depends on where we move vibrationally. One of the things that we have to consider is that this population is not here to be like us, they are here to evolve us. And so, if all goes well, then, by that date, by that 2035, then we have a collective population, a collective humanity that is stepping into some of the capacities and skill sets that this population is bringing us. If things go a little bit awry and we kind of stay stuck in some of the old patterns that we've been in for quite some time, then we've got other options, and that's really up to us. I mean, it's literally up to us on this call right here, right now. How do we perceive these children? What are we learning from them? Are we getting their messages? Are we available to step into some of the capacities that they are attempting to show us? And we just kind of were aligning with that just a minute ago when we were stepping into that heart space, and having a little bit more compassion for ourselves and radiating that out. It's one of the gifts that this population is bringing. So, yeah, and the implications, and sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but the implications for the school system are really what the implications for the school system has been all along. These school systems, if they are staying in that old consciousness, or if they're not evolving with the children that they are supposedly supporting, then they will cave. They've been struggling for years. I mean, years. I remember probably a good 10 or 15 years ago, somebody contacting me from a school in Maine and saying, oh gosh, it was actually longer than that then. It was probably 25 years ago that a person contacted me from a school in Maine, and they said, we're really concerned because a good 30% of our population is diagnosed with autism or ADD, ADHD, some letter configuration, some label. And they said, what, you know, we really usually would not talk to somebody like you because you're out there, you know, and what do you think? What should we do? What can happen? And I said, wait till it gets to over 50% and you'll be fine, because then you'll have to be supporting the children instead of trying to get them to conform or to configure to the way you still want things to be. And so there's, here we are in 2022, and between 2022 and 2035, we have a mass awakening in collective human consciousness. We do not know what it will look like when we get there, but we do know, or I can maybe suggest, that a lot of our newer populations hold a lot of the information or the consciousness or the opportunities, the capacities that we're trying to grow into. So my guess is that all things considered, it looks like a pretty good 2035. So
All right, this question is, and I think it falls into the space for everyone around creativity. I love to paint and I cannot put myself to do it because I feel imprisoned. Something is stopping me and I want to be able to sit and paint again.
I know this sounds maybe trite, but sit and paint. You know, literally sit and paint and be with all of the energy and the feelings that arise because you sit and paint. Because what I'm hearing is, I'd like to paint, I'm creative, I'd like to demonstrate, I'd like to let that energy flow. And then the mind comes in and says, yes, but I'm constrained, or I can't do that. So the remedy to that is to do it, to just do it. And all the energy that comes up, even if it's a little sketch, a little dabble, a little, and just notice what comes up for you when you are not going along with what your mind is telling you is the issue. Because I guarantee whatever the mind is saying to you is the issue is not the issue. Where it's almost like a shift of perception is what's required. And we can't shift that perception unless we do the very thing that we feel like we have an angst against. Yeah. It's almost like you'll be able to prove to yourself that that capacity exists, and that, yeah, do it. Paint, draw, do whatever. Just, it doesn't, you don't have to rearrange your whole life to do it either. Just sit down and do it. After this call, just sit down and do it, and just notice what arises. Yep, notice what's there, what's uncomfortable. You'll be happy you did. You're not as blocked as you think you are.
The last few nights, I keep waking up a lot with my 8-year-old, who has also been much more scared than normal of the dark, and coming into coming into bed with me. Is there something we can do to avoid the wakefulness and create a safer energy field for nighttime?
Yes, it again, where we are all energy, we are energy first. And so many of the kids right now, so many of our own inner children, you know, it's are feeling the stress and the anxiety and the fear of the change. You know, it's, there's a lot going on right now out in the world, whether we're in it or watching it or any of that stuff. There's so much shifting and changing in the reality that we have known to be true. And we don't necessarily, at least our minds don't fully grasp or know where we're going, right? And so that fear of the dark, the fear of the unknown, the fear of not being able to see what's in front of us, you know. So again, if we can just have a little bit more compassion for the fact that, you know, I know it's as parents, I mean, I had 4 kids. I didn't sleep for 8 years solid, I think. I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is never going to stop. It's like it's going to go on forever. Um, so, what I'll say is yes, acknowledge the fact that it's exhausting, and there are going to be moments when you're not as compassionate towards what your child is picking up or what your child is experiencing because, when we get tired, we're tired. So we don't have to beat ourselves up for that or make ourselves wrong. But let's just be aware that he is feeling, your child is feeling what they're feeling. They're picking up, um, I'm going to say, a fear of the darkness. But in this case, not so much a fear of dark energy or dark whatever, fear of the unknown. Yep, just fear of the unknown. And the other thing I would just ask you to look at is there anywhere for you where you are in fear of the unknown, right? It's pretty common right now to be in that space. Um, what is dark or what is hidden that is fearful. And if we just kind of flip it around and kind of look at it from that vantage point, we'll start being aware of some of the things that maybe we haven't been aware of before. That in and of itself can be a great shift for your child. So, yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Starting my next trip around the sun today, and I find myself slammed with sickness. Would love some perspective, insight, silver lining, things to learn from this. Thank you.
So consider it consider it like I know none of us like to be sick. It's I hate it. A matter of fact, I really don't like it when I'm physically not feeling well. So, but what I want to say is each year, oh man, you are moving a lot of energy. So hold on just a second. Let's consider that what you can't carry forward what you have had as part of your imprint in the past. And so let's consider that every year that you're on this planet and every time that you step into another year, um, it it's almost like that energy is intensifying so that you purge as much of what no longer represents the greater totality of you. You purge that, and you are purging that right now. There's nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to. Um, yeah, it's you. You are literally dropping not just out of the mental body and the emotional body, but even out of the physical body, that which no longer serves you. Yep. And so again, we've been taught that, if we're ill or we're not feeling good, that something's wrong with us. What if nothing is wrong with you? What if you are simply dumping as much as you can dump in order to take this next little rotation around the sun? Yeah, that's to it's this happens for all of us at the end of any year. If you've heard me speak for very long at all, you know that I'll talk about October, November, and December being almost years where we just purge and purge and purge. So that's more like on a collective level. But on a personal level, we can do that with our birthdays as well. There's something else here though, because I can really feel this energy. It's like it just, there's a lot. Um, I'll tell you the thing that's showing up to say is we have we have lived by our stories for lifetimes, and this is no criticism whatsoever. We have all, as a humanity, lived by our stories for lifetimes, and your story no longer serves you. Your whatever the story of you is, it's not big enough for you. It's just not big enough. And And so everywhere where it's lodged in the cells of your body, in the tissue, in the muscle, in the bone, it's just trying to release. So let it go. Yeah, it's and when people say when people say let it go, what you know, depending on where you are in this process, that can sound like I can't do that. So if you can't let go, just don't resist. Just don't just don't resist the fact that you're sick right now. Yeah. Yeah. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, other people were saying that you were sounded like you were talking to them as well. So,
Okay, good. Yeah.
all right. My daughter has hand finger movements where she moves it across her eyes constantly. This seems to be a common autistic characteristic. What does that do for her and others?
The first thing I heard was the filtration of light. It's a um, I mean, if you do it yourself, I mean, just what happens when you put your hand in front of your face like that? You know, it alters the way you perceive. It alters the energy coming in. It blocks out certain pieces of the information that you're looking at. So in this case, it feels like it's her way of, I'm going to say, filtering information fields or filtering light frequencies, filtering even some of what she's perceiving. I think it's also a really great metaphor for her because she sees. Hold on a second. Um, it's almost like she sees multiple realities. And so, as she sees multiple realities, if you have your hand in front of your face, you're literally seeing through different lenses, right? So, it's also a metaphor for that. Um, it's her way of, and the children's way. They do it for slightly different reasons, but we can. There's some generality to this as well. It's like what she's saying is there's so much information coming in all the time that it's like she's wanting to look at it through different lenses. She's wanting to see it through in different ways. She's looking into it through different realities. Um, yeah, and very often what's in front of her um, is a lot. And so there just needs to be some kind of filtration of that. Yeah. So I hope that's.
This question is, I feel like I may be undiagnosed on the spectrum. Could you speak to that? And I hear a lot of people say that as well.
I don't know why it's coming up like this, but this is what I want to share with you. So in um, in your field and in our fields, we have our capacities and we have our challenges, right? Everybody has both. We're human. So it's it's like there's a pull between what you perceive as your challenges and what you perceive as your capacities. And when there's a division or a pull, a separation between those two realities, it can feel like we somehow mm, we feel that separation, we feel that pull um, as a division or a separation within ourselves. Like we're not fully, are we fully here? Are we fully present? Are we fully connected to what's available to us, or are we somehow separated from it? And the only thing I would suggest here is let's 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 put the diagnosis aside of put the diagnosis aside of what, autism or any other label, and let's just look at it from the perspective of what makes you feel that way, right? What makes you, because there are great capacities within that label or that diagnosis, and there are challenges within it as well, sometimes great challenges within it as well. And usually those challenges are related to the separation between the capacity and that ability to bring that capacity here, planet Earth, right? And so all I'm going to suggest to you is look at that for yourself, notice that for yourself, see where, it's like I can almost hear you. I mean, there's a place within you that knows your great capacity, right? There's a place that you within you that kind of goes, yeah, I got it going on in this, in this aspect of myself. And there's another part of you that finds that sometimes very challenging to bring forward in its fullness. And so we don't have to blame it or shame it or condemn it in any way. Just look at it, just perceive it, and see what happens. Yeah.
My son loves to twirl tissue paper or string. Do you think he's trying to see things in a different perspective or just trying to soothe himself? I'm trying to figure it out myself.
Self-soothing, for sure. And again, let's consider that although twirling string or flipping your fingers in front of your eyes or spinning your body or rocking or any of those things might look, quote unquote, abnormal, to the general population. But I also want us to just stop for a second and recognize that every single one of us has self-soothing behaviors. Every single one of us has ways in which we try to self-regulate. Yep. And depending on how much information we're dealing with, that self-regulation may have to look outside of the norm. Like if we're bringing in or interfacing with more information fields than the average Joe, and if we're not quite as grounded or as present in this reality as, the average Joe, then we are going to have to come up with some kinds of strategies in order to regulate ourselves with all of that information. And so if we see these kinds of experiences as, wow, how amazing that you came up with something that can soothe you. How amazing that you can feel better feel better in this environment, as dense as it is to you, by twirling or by flipping or by whatever it is. Yeah, let's just pay attention. We all self-regulate. We all attempt to self-soothe, right? And again, I'd really like us to start seeing some of these experiences of the kids as a capacity, right? We usually say that it's a disorder because it looks weird, right? Compared to how everybody else self-regulates. But I guarantee every single one of us on this call and everyone far and wide that if we were in the exact same situation of not being fully present in our body and dealing with as much information as these kids are dealing with, we would also look a little odd, in our self-regulation. Yeah. Yeah. It's a capacity. They're doing really well.
I'm going to generalize it. It's when these children look from the side of their eyes, what would be the reason for doing that out of the side of their eyes?
Perceptual reality. Have you guys ever had an experience where you're walking through your day and you catch something from your peripheral vision and then you go to look at it and it's not there, right? Well, our there we have a field of vision that is what we expect to see, and that's what we typically look at. And then we have other fields of vision that are peripheral, you might say, and in many ways more subtle. So a lot of times, if the kids are directing their gaze more towards that peripheral field, it's because something's there. It's because they have access, they're seeing something. It's just like kids, kind of looking up into the corner of a room. Um, there's something there. Yeah. A long time ago, I was working with a kid. This is back when I was still a speech pathologist, and I used to go to their house to work with them, and his mother would, we would go into his room and we would work. And in his room, he only had a bed, he had some toys underneath the bed, and we would play on the floor. And of course, I was still in speech pathology mode at that time, even though I had some of the awarenesses I have now. And I would, we were playing cards, right? Flipping animal cards, like, do you know what these are? His mom kept telling me, and he kept looking up in the corner of the room. He'd go peripheral vision, he'd look up in the corner of the room, he'd do both, right? And and because I can see what I can see, I could see that there was something in the corner of the room. I could see that there was a being there. And I was flipping these cards. The kid, he could not, he was semi-verbal. He couldn't name those pictures, or he would name them and he would get confused and whatever. And so finally I said to him, I go, can he help you? Can that one up in the corner help you with these cards? And he looked at me, he smiled and he laughed and he got up on his bed and he jumped up on his bed and he's looking up in the corner and having a conversation with whatever that being, whatever that was that had come to support him. He jumped down on the floor, sat down in front of me, dog, cat, pig. I just went through the cards and he just flipped right through them. So again, there are all kinds of information fields that we do not see that these kids do see. And we don't want to negate what they see. We want to actually learn from what they see and be curious enough about it that they can invite us to a broader perceptual range. Yeah.
Okay, this question is, I had a traumatic, difficult birth with my child. It seems to be a common experience with other mothers I know of kids on the spectrum. Is there a reason for this?
I want to be, hold on a second. Okay. So the trauma, yes, there is the trauma at birth is, there are all kinds of separation factors when a child, there are all kinds of separation factors that are related to a child diagnosed with autism, right? Sometimes we can say that vaccines can create that separation. Sometimes it's a traumatic experience early in childhood. Sometimes it's a traumatic birth. Sometimes it's a traumatic lineage. There's trauma in the lineage, but every one of those traumas creates a separation, right? So that very trauma is, quite honestly, my own trauma, early trauma, is what allowed me to have access to the kids in the first place, right? It's like it is that separation that that's what we're seeing. And if we looked at this at a global level, we could say that this population in some ways represents our collective separation from ourselves. And that's not a blame, a shame, or a guilt. It's a truth that we have become disconnected from ourselves. It's one of the reasons why the kids will ask and sometimes demand that we heal our own inner children, we heal our own inner wounds, we reintegrate that part of ourselves so that they can show up more easily. So it's nobody's fault that we have a traumatic birth. A lot of times, if we have a traumatic birth as we're giving birth to a child, there's some information or some history somewhere along the line that brings that about. We couldn't possibly know what that all is and where that's come from. I mean, we're constantly in this opportunity to integrate different aspects of ourselves. And in many ways, we have to understand our separation from ourselves before we can proceed with that integration process. So yes, there is definitely a commonality among children diagnosed on the spectrum in relationship to trauma. Somewhere, there is going to be something that created a separation. And I also want to be really clear that it's nobody's fault that that separation was created, right? I mean, there's not a mother or a parent on the planet that would not, if they were able to consciously choose to give their child the best life possible, the best, connection to themselves, the best connection to source possible, that they wouldn't do it. So this isn't coming from a place of what we would prefer. This is coming from an unconscious patterning. And again, that is not a fault. The other thing I want to say is the flip side of this is that most souls, we'll go to the soul part here, most souls who end up with a diagnosis of autism are showing up in that configuration because they are no longer going to continue a lineage line. They are no longer, it's almost like I'm not, from a soul perspective, I'm not going to show up fully present in my body because I'm not going to be impacted or imprinted by what has come before me. Yep. And so it's like, I'll wait. And what happens, and we know, I mean, each one of you that is a parent, I mean, day in, day out, 24/7, you got so much coming up every day, all day, that I'm amazed at each and every one of you. I mean, talk about people who have chosen to fast track themselves spiritually. That's intense, to say the least. So, but why is it intense? It's intense because the next generation, your children, your child, is going, okay, this is where it stops. Everything all the lineage information that came before, we're not going down that road anymore, at least not the part that has separated us from ourselves. So the child's not fully in the body, not fully present to pick that up. But what that does is it puts all that energy back on that parent. So now that parent is the one in the lineage chain that is going to break that dynamic, right? We're not doing this anymore. We're not doing, yeah. And it doesn't always take a child diagnosed with autism to bring that about, but the level of intensity that goes with that is it is the buck stops here. And when we think about how many children are showing up now at the same time that we are collectively moving into a new consciousness, literally a new reality, doesn't it make sense that the buck has to stop here for everything that came before it? right? We need to be able to choose from now and move forward. Yep, instead of choosing from all these lineage patterns that were conditioned by um, some something, someone, some expression that was attempting to hold us in separation in the first place. Yeah. I remember my daughter, my third daughter, I remember one day, as little kids do, said, just driving sitting in the back seat of the car and driving somewhere. And she said, Mommy, she goes, aren't you glad you broke the chain? And I mean, she was maybe 5 at the time. And I go, honey, what do you mean? She goes, you have never been to us what was to you. She goes, you haven't carried that on. And I literally had to pull off the side of the road and kind of go, oh my God, it's like, that's right, I haven't. It's yeah. So you guys are doing amazing work, and it's hard work. I'm not going to minimize it in any way, shape, or form. Like this is like superhuman work. I mean, this is like, but you also have some of the best teachers on the planet, because they will not allow anything to go, they'll not let any stone go unturned, right? You're going to keep noticing and feeling and being triggered, if you will. You're going to get to see every single angle of yourself, whether you want to or not. But again, if you consider that it's for a bigger purpose, yep, it's a whole lineage. And you may not even know where the discord is in that lineage. It may not be self-evident, by your relationship with your family. But I guarantee if you look a little bit further back, there will be something that created separation, something that created disconnect. And you guys are reconnecting. You guys are in charge of the reconnect.
Several comments of saying thank you. That makes a lot of sense. There is one question I want to, is you pretty much answered it, but I want to see if the way she words it, I think might help expand it just a little bit. Why do I have a kid on the spectrum? How can we help each other? Is there something I need to let go within me? And is there something I need to learn? So just if there's anything else to add.
Yeah, all of that. Again, there's not a parent on this planet whose children are not reflecting back something to be aware of or something to choose again on. When you have a child diagnosed on the spectrum, that's on like steroids, right? It's like, because these kids are so tuned into and so capable of seeing parts of us that we can't see ourselves, right? So, one of the things I want everybody to really understand too is that your child is never reflecting what is going on in the moment, right? If your child is, say, your child is doing something and it's aggravated you or triggered you or brought something up, it's never what's going on in that moment. It's what's gone on in a past moment that hasn't been integrated for you. Right. And this is true. I mean, I had 4 daughters. I remember early on kind of going, oh my God, I was like seeing myself coming and going. It's like you get these 4 little girls, all these different ages of myself, at any given time. I had 2.5-year blocks, right? So at any time I was going up in 2.5-year increments and seeing these different parts of myself that, quite frankly, I really didn't want to see. I mean, who wants to feel that stuff? Who wants to see? But the great grace of it is that they're just showing you a part of you that needs to be loved. They're showing you a part of you that still believes that it's bad or that it's wrong or that it hasn't figured things out. It's not smart enough, pretty enough, whatever the scenarios are. They're only showing us this part of us that has yet to be loved. Yeah. And if we can really hear that, and instead of trying to fix them, when they're doing something that triggers us, why do we try to fix somebody? We try to fix somebody because we don't like the feeling they're bringing up. We don't like the experience that's coming up through us. But instead of not liking it, can we turn that around for a second? Can we turn that around and can we meet that unintegrated part of ourselves? Can we meet that part of ourselves that was wounded or hurt or not heard or not loved or not seen or not valued? Can we just turn around and meet that part and say, I see you. I see you. I've got you. Yeah, you didn't get that before, but I can give that to you now. Yeah. I really feel like that particular shift, I can feel it. Could you feel it? The energy just went, just moved. So that particular shift, when we're asking what can we do out in the world and, how can we make this a better place and all this, let's start right here. Start with having as much love and compassion for our experience as is possible. And there are days when we don't do so well with that. That's okay too. We haven't gotten to the rocket science stage of humanity yet. We're learning, we're growing. And these kids, I promise you, are helping us do that.
This question is from a mom who wants to know, now that you've talked about all that, how can you help them integrate into their bodies more?
Do what I just said. So we can't help anybody do something that we haven't done. Yeah. So again, if we have to have love and compassion for ourselves. We have to allow ourselves the opportunity to be present with these parts of ourselves. And as we do that, the beautiful piece about this population is they are so energetically sensitive that when we see something within ourselves, we're not trying to fix ourselves. We're coming into awareness. When we do that, they shift, right? If they're mirroring or they're showing us different parts of ourselves that want to be integrated, and if we will then turn and meet those unintegrated parts, we support them in being that much more present. At the end of the day, how do I want to say this? Let me say this. I would say 100% of the time, when I ask a parent, what do you want for your child? What do you want? What do you really, if you could have anything for your child, what would you want for your child? And they say something like, oh my gosh, I would like him to be integrated. I would like him to be present here. I'd like her to be able to communicate with me. I would like whatever that is, that phrase is for you. Again, let's turn that around and let's acknowledge that that's really what you want for you. You want to be more fully present here. You want to be more communicative here. You want to be more connected, or whatever it is. Just understand that there's some child inside of us that's saying, this is what I want for that child. I don't want my child to suffer. There's not a parent on the planet that couldn't say that very clearly. I don't want my child to suffer. Turn it around. That's true. And we don't want our own inner children to suffer anymore. We don't want them to suffer. And the only way that they're going to stop suffering is if we actually turn our attention to them, love them, have compassion for them, give them what they didn't get. Yeah? And I promise that as you do this, you're naturally, there are all kinds of other means and supports of integration. But I will tell you this, you'll only go so far. Your child will only go so far in their own integration process. They can only go as far as we've integrated. Yeah. It's like, and I want to be also clear that just because we integrate doesn't mean that all of a sudden they're verbal communicators and they're presenting in the world differently than they have before. What it means is that the way they present in the world is absolutely fine with you. It's absolutely okay with you. Yeah? Does that make sense? It's the moment that that child is just that, a child that has its quirkiness, has its uniqueness, has its capacity, has that, right? It's as we integrate, that becomes less problematic. Yeah. I hope that is helpful. Not too direct. Maybe just as direct as it needs to be. Let's put it that way.
This is so good. Is it possible to model an example? When my daughter is extremely outraged at me not giving her what she wants, what do I do with my own inner girl in that moment?
Right. So is there any part of any of your inner children that is outraged because they didn't get what they needed? And is there any part of you that's, I mean, I can feel that on any given day. It's like, so absolutely, just let's flip it around. Let's just ask ourselves questions. Let's just be in curiosity. And obviously, when you have a child who is in outrage, in that moment, you can't necessarily think clear enough to ask yourself these questions. But so support the situation however you need to or want to support the situation. But if we want to dismantle the patterning of that situation, we're going to have to go and just at least ask, at least be curious about, is there a place where I'm in outrage? Yeah. So I'll give you an example, one that I've used before. So if you've heard it, excuse me. But right after I got divorced, like 20 some odd years ago, I had my two youngest daughters with me, and my two oldest were living with my ex-husband. And the two youngest would, I was a speech pathologist at the school where they were, and there was a time period where I was at home for whatever reason. They were coming off the school bus, and maybe I hadn't gotten that position yet or something, but I was at home. They were coming off the school bus. And when they would come off the school bus, they would they're arguing. They're like cats and dogs. And one of them saying, you don't love me. You don't want to be with me. You don't da da da. And the other one is kind of going, hey, I know what I want. I know what I want to do. I know the direction I'm going, blah, 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 blah. And interestingly enough, it was the younger one that was so self-assured. It was the older one um, that was feeling like left out, abandoned, or whatever that is. And I listened to this for a week, every day off the school bus, and you're like, it's like, come on. And there, finally, I got to the point. I was like, just listen to what they're saying. And I was listening to what they were saying, and I was just hearing it, not trying to fix it, not trying to change it, just hearing it. And I thought, oh my God, those are two aspects of myself. You can imagine in a newly divorced state, regardless of whether you're the one choosing or not, there's that feeling of like, oh, I feel abandoned. Did I abandon myself? Have I been abandoned? And then there's this other side that created the separation in the first place, that was like, no, I know exactly what I want next. I know exactly where I want to go, know exactly who I want to be. And so both of those experiences were being played out by these two little girls, right? The minute, the minute I kind of went, oh, that's what they're showing me. Literally that day they come off the bus and they're laughing and playing and enjoying each other's company. And I have so many examples of this where, people have had certain patterns that they've held, and we don't even know we're holding them because we're in it. We're in it. And so our kids reflect it back. And kids on the spectrum are damn good at doing this. They're really good at doing this because they pick up such subtle information. Yeah. So
We have about 5 minutes. Do you want to do closing words or?
do we have another question or no?
I have one question.
Yeah, let's do one question and we'll do closing, and then.
It says, many of our health providers keep telling us to eliminate devices for our child, iPads and iPhones, because it's harmful to their attention. It seems to be regulating my child. What have you found?
Both, and I found that the device itself is less of a challenge than the content that the device is offering, right? So actually, a lot of those devices, iPhones, iPads, all of that, they're designed in such a way, number one, they're so visual, and they're also they're layered. They're multidimensional in many ways. So there's a natural affinity, let's say, for the kids for that. The other side of that, however, is like anything, it's not the thing, it's how we use the thing that can create the issue. So we really have to pay attention to the content that is being expressed through that device. That content is also multidimensional, it's also multi-layered. And again, with the level of energetic sensitivity of a lot of the kids, they're picking up subtleties of that information that some kids might miss, or might be in their subconscious or unconscious, but they don't really, and it'll come out later, of course. But again, let's, I want to say something here. Let's consider that if these children are indeed as energetically aware and sensitive as I'm suggesting that they are, and let's say that what they really need in order to be as fully present here as is possible is a higher frequency, a higher, and we come to that higher frequency by loving and having compassion and being coherent within ourselves, right? There's all kinds of ways that we can modulate our own experience so that we are more interconnected with ourselves and thus more interconnected with the kids, right? So we really want to pay attention to the information that we're putting in. And this includes everything, not just iPads and iPhones and what is being imprinted upon the kids, but also about this opportunity. If you have a child who is so energetically sensitive, yes, it is true that they are pulling out all kinds of information from you, but it's also true that we can imprint the kind of information that we really want to imprint because they're so sensitive. So if we start seeing, visualizing, experiencing within ourselves on a subtle level, even something that we would like to see come about for them, or a way in which we would like them to be supported, it is more likely that they are going to connect to that experience and actually play it out, right? So we want to pay attention to what we're imprinting, because as with any child, whatever we imprint is what comes out later, comes out the other end, literally. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing, and this is another reason why it is so beneficial to perceive anyone the way you want to see them, perceive them, see them in their highest capacity, see them in their greatest good, see them in the way that you would love to interact with them. And that's what you evoke, right? And we're not doing that to control somebody. We're doing that because it feels better to us to interact in that way, right? Again, they may change or they may not. They may shift or they may not. It's not about that. It's about, how do we move through life? How do we perceive them? I mean, do we want to spend our whole lives seeing our children as broken, right? And if we are seeing them as broken, again, is there anywhere within ourselves that inner child feels broken? And we know that we don't make a child feel better by telling it it's broken. We make a child feel better by, drawing it close, loving it, having compassion for it, supporting it, in a way that it might not have been supported in the first place. So we do these things because it feels good to us. Yeah. And then there's a byproduct that'll show up in whatever way it shows up, but it's not about that. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. Hope that's, yeah.
Okay. Just closing remarks, and then explain to them the New World Portal before we go.
Let me explain the New World Portal first, and then we'll do the closing, because the closing hopefully will leave us in a really nice kind of more neutral place all the way around. So there's been all kinds of energy that's just popped up just because we've been having the conversations that we've been having, and so we'll kind of stabilize that and support that, have love and compassion for that. But the New World Portal is something that we started on April 1st, so it's brand new. It is every Monday, there is an energy session. 2 Thursdays a month, there is a question and answer session. And those question and answers are really about what's shifting for us energetically as we're moving and changing and reorienting ourselves energetically. How is that experienced for you? Those kinds of questions get clarified twice a month. And then the other 2 times a month, there is what I call like inner aspect sessions. So we all know about the aspects of us that we don't necessarily like. Those kind of seem to be up for most of us. Some of us are getting better and better, or really appreciating the aspects of ourselves that are unique and different, um, and honoring those. The inner aspect sessions really introduces you to different aspects of yourself that you might not always interface with or look at or even know exist. So it's kind of an expansion in that way. So there's a call every Monday, there's a call every Thursday. Those calls are all recorded. You can attend live or you can listen to the recording. There's also a Facebook community that goes with the New World portal. A lot of the people in that portal, so far anyway, have been people that have been around for quite some time, and they could support you as much as I could support you. I mean, there's a real collaboration and interface there, which is really beautiful. What else am I missing, Sharon? Is there anything else?
How it brings in the children and you.
Yeah. So just as we were just speaking through this whole call, it's like the better we know ourselves, the more expanded we are within our own awareness, the more we have to offer um, the inner children of somebody we're interacting with or our physical children. So it actually works both ways. I don't think there's any way around. We can't just say to our own inner children, here, you go over there. I don't want to see you anymore. You go over there. Don't come back. You're not part of the whole. We can't do that and feel our wholeness. And just like we can't negate some of our greater capacities and feel whole. So it goes hand in hand as far as I'm concerned, that the more we know about ourselves, the more we can support the children, future generations, really make the shifts that are needed to be made right now. So yeah, so that's that. All right. A couple other things. There's little things that come up via email to vlogs, blogs, when they show up. And also, I draw from a lot of other people too. It's like sometimes I'll hear something that somebody else is saying, then they say it much better than I can, or they put it in language that might be easier to hear, or so those kinds of things go out too. So, all right. So these are great questions. Thank you, guys, and I really appreciate you, showing up for these, because it's deep work. And we're going to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt. Nobody said it was easy work. It's not. It's not easy work, and yet there's such a level of expansion and change for those who individually choose to do this kind of work, because it impacts not only your children, but it impacts the collective. I mean, I promise you, when I started talking about this stuff in '99, people thought I had three heads. It's like I was speaking about a capacity and a gift that was there that nobody else was seeing at that time. And you look now at how much has evolved just in the last 20 plus years. That's huge, and it's because people like us, people like you, are doing this work, because people like you are willing to not pay attention, well, not not have the outside be the primary focus. It's Life looks like it looks for each and every one of us, and there are all kinds of challenges for all kinds of people, especially now. But the gift in that is that it's bringing stuff up that was buried so deep that it's never had the opportunity to come up before. And it's through that very turning and looking at it. We don't have to psychoanalyze it. We don't have to spend years in therapy. All we have to do is turn around and go, oh, there you are. Oh, I see you. I see that part. Yeah, I'm here with you. It's okay. The moment we just make that shift, things start dropping away, and change can occur collectively. Yeah. All right. So let's, I know we're running a little bit long. So let's go ahead and I'll jump off my soapbox for just a second and let's see. Okay, so let's just pay attention. Close your eyes for a second and let's just feel what's up for you. Feel what's kind of moving in your field. Yeah, and we're not going to judge it. We're not going to try to even make it stop. We're just going to witness it. We're just going to watch it. We're going to notice that it's there. And we're not going to just notice that it's there. We're going to give it permission to be there. You're allowed to exist. That energy that's agitated or frustrated or confused or worried or scared or any of that, it's allowed to exist. And not only is it allowed to exist, but there is another aspect of you that is capable, has the capacity to come in and hold that part of you that's worried, scared, frustrated, irritated. And we so rarely call on the part of our totality, the aspects of ourself that can support the aspects of ourselves that are challenged. So we're just going to call in right here. I've been calling in the Divine Mother a lot. Yeah, we did that in the New World Portal just last week. Just allowing that energy, that part of you that is that divine support. There we go. Bring that in and let those parts of you that are uncertain, unsure, nervous, worried, scared, whatever, allow those parts to be in the presence of that divine energy, that divine mother. There we go. There we go. And I really want you to get a feel of those two embracing, those two aspects of it. It'll neutralize that energy. It zeroes something out. So that you can choose again. There we go. Okay, we're gonna hold this in place. You just toning. We can literally tone that connection, that relationship into place. So it's easier to find again when you're out doing life. Yeah? Okay. Nice deep inhale and exhale, everybody. And thank you, thank you, thank you, because you let that one go really deep. Yeah. All right. Okay, we're done. Lots of love, everybody. And yeah, check out the New World Portal. We also have monthly energy sessions and the Children's Sanctuary that are included in the New World Portal, but can also be attended separately if that's of interest. So, all right, I'm all done. Good. Okay. Lots of love, everybody. Bye.